Okay, we're rolling. Oh,
Okay.
oops, I forgot to do one thing, sorry. Okay. We'll get to these in a minute. This will be fun. Do you have any idea how many students you had over the years you were here? Have you ever tried to count that?
I think one time I counted around 10,000 because I had a number of semester classes.
Could I get you to do something for me? And I forgot to mention this when we started. When I ask you a question, they will never hear my question.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have to rephrase my question.
Oh.
So the question
Okay.
is 10,000 what?
I can do that.
Okay. So if you have a rough idea about how many students have you taught?
One time, I counted the number of students that I taught in like 5 years, and then tried to go from there to how many I may have taught. And if I remember correctly, I got to about 10,000, but I had a number of semester classes, and that always doubles the quantity of students. And maybe I counted students I had in junior high also. I taught 4 years of junior high.
That's a lot of kids.
It really is.
Let me get one thing on tape that I'll want. Would you, in sentence form, tell us who you are, what you taught and where, and for how long? Start with your name.
I am Claran Jacobs, and that's the name that all my students knew me by. But 4 years ago, I married Arlen Larson, so now I'm Claran Larson. I started Skyline in 1963-64. And somebody do the math who's listening. I'm an English teacher, I'm not a math teacher. And I really haven't figured out the quantity of years. But when I started, the same 3 people were in administration that you had when you graduated in 1969. Mr. Pisa, Mr. Ridd, and Mr. Middleton. And even though Mr. Pisa is gone, Mr. Ridd, believe it or not, is still living, very vibrant, and has a great memory for Skyline and for everything else. And Mr. Middleton is out in South Jordan, West Jordan.
That's great. Let's focus a little bit on 1969, 68, 69. Do you have any images of what that year was like, about the things you taught, about the students you taught and dealt with?
I do. I looked through the yearbook and I was amazed at the formality of the dress. There were no spaghetti straps, no t-shirts, at least in the yearbook pictures. The candid shots, skirts were mini skirts, but the girls were not wearing pants. That came a while after. However, I just had this image of students obeying the rules. And that students never obey the rules, so that's not an honest image. But yet, I think much more so than in later years, than the 70s and after. And teaching was exciting, but it was always exciting. The Skyline was only 5 years old. And so not only was everything new, but but everything was possible. There weren't very many things that the students really couldn't do. I know students always think there are things they can't do, but yet there just were limitless possibilities, and that's the way I remember my students, and they were just wonderful, absolutely wonderful, exciting. No back talk in class, although I didn't face that. But today, teachers have the problem of students choosing to be nonconformists and calling attention to themselves, but also they have the problem of blaming their mistakes on others. Oh, it wasn't my fault.
Are there any events in the school or in your classes during that time period? Funny anecdotes or tragic or dramatic or otherwise significant that pique your memory?
Well, I have a really good forgetter as far as a memory is concerned. I would be able to answer that a lot better if I looked through the papers, school papers. But I remember Mr. Pease's warning in faculty meeting that really applied to me because I had the Horizon staff, and journalism students like to test the limits. He would say, "We do not air our dirty laundry in the newspaper." And he would say it to us as teachers in faculty meeting. He'd hear something, a parent would call and complain about something, and Mr. Pisa would say to us in faculty meeting, you should have come to me, that should stay right here in this school, not go outside of the school.
Hard to control that now.
Impossible.
Yeah. What do you miss about that era? You've talked about the decorum of students, anything else?
I think students, well, I said it before, especially not wanting to take the consequences of their own actions if they can't get their homework done, literally can't get their homework done. It's always because of this and this and this and this and this and this and this, not because of their own choices. And that's happens lots, really a lot. I can't think of anything else.
Are there any individual students from 68, 69 that you remember? And I realize there's going to be too many to remember, but are there a few, one or two or three that whose names and personalities particularly come to mind?
Randy, you are one of them because I keep running into you over this period of years, and because you have stayed with the photography that I knew you for, stayed with the writing, the PR, yeah. As I was looking through the yearbook and the sports and the football, naturally, I noticed Steve Marlowe's picture. I did not teach Steve, but I knew him. And Steve is the best, a representative of the best that Skyline produces. if you come into the school by the office, there is a glassed-in bulletin board of Skyline's Hall of Fame, and Steve's picture is there. He is just the nicest person, and that's what I remember about so many of the Skyline students. The ones that I keep seeing, the ones that I think about, are those who worked really hard to achieve where they wanted to and where they still want to. The ones who use their talents, they don't throw them away. And they had many and still have very many. And I love seeing students that I've taught. I absolutely love to see them, run into them somewhere.
Let me give you a little quiz of things that I remember, see if you do. Who was your head photographer?
I don't remember.
I remember because I worked with him.
Was
His
it
name
Pat?
Pat Tucker.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought, well, that's that dark brown eyes, dark brown hair, Pat. And I thought, well, I wonder if that really was that year. Yeah.
Do you know the fellow who recruited me to come to the journalism staff?
Who's that?
Steve Romney.
Oh, that is one fantastic man. Steve really is. Now that's another one. Steve Romney and his cousin, is it? Oh my golly, what's his name? Ralph?
Ralph was his dad.
Okay, time out.
Yeah. I can see his face. I know who
Steve
you're talking
is so cute. He is, I used to run into him in, where was it, over at Evergreen? I mean up at Eastwood, somewhere where he had a child and I had a grandchild, and it was just delightful seeing him. And I saw him over a period of a few years. It could have been, I guess it's possible it could have been at Evergreen. Okay, I did look at this.
I wanted to say Ralph too. I didn't know if that was his
Let's see.
cousin's name or not.
I had to laugh at something he wrote in here. Oh, but you can't put this.
Check the tape, make sure I have it.
Okay, you can't put this on tape. He's the one who, Richard Romney.
Richard.
Yeah, he's the one who had the New Era for a long time, and now he has some kind of administrative position over all the church magazines. Yeah, I guess you can
Now
say
that you
magazines.
Publications. Now that
Yeah.
you mention it, you're right, because I worked at church headquarters and ran into Richard.
Oh, okay.
I had forgotten that.
This is a PS. Thanks for all the aspirin that isn't there. I had aspirin in my top drawer, in the desk, and students knew that if they were just dying with a headache or something, and it wasn't aspirin, it was Tylenol, and they wanted to accept the responsibility, they could get in my top drawer when I wasn't looking and take what they needed. And I'd had that for years and years before students started sneaking their own into school. Okay, Yeah, Randy Hitchcock. I remember Randy. Did you know that Steve Wilson died? Sports writer. Yeah. I saw the obituary in the paper. And I've seen Lynn McMurray over the years and years and years. And I loved, did you see after LDS conference, wasn't that interesting? I love that.
I worked on his campaign for student body president.
Well,
Let me ask you one other question.
He was an excellent one.
Oh, he was great. He
Yeah.
was such a great man, still is.
And cute Mary Lou Gessel.
She was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fun.
I see those three sisters sometimes. Okay.
The last question I've got, and then maybe we'll kick around some other things. Do you have any advice for those of us in the class of '69?
Yes, I do.
Put it back in a sentence to me.
The advice I would give every student who has ever graduated from Skyline, and that definitely means the class of '69, be proud of your school. This is the most outstanding school still. And you go places, and alumni students I've taught keep telling me this. They can go to other states, to other countries, and they will say in being introduced or in conversation, yeah, I went to Skyline High School in Salt Lake City. And the admiration for having gone to this outstanding school, not conceit, but a good pride, because we just had so much here. I hope they felt they had a faculty that cared a whole lot about them. And be proud of each other. Always be proud. And don't stop going to reunions. You'll have friends who wouldn't go to this reunion because they said, I hated high school. I don't want anything else to do with it. I'll never go. You wait 50 years, 55, when you start having reunions every 5 years, you can get those friends out. Because all of that hurt, that feeling left out, kind of gets washed away. And they realize how special those friends are from Skyline. You all shared something that no one else has shared with you. So always go to reunions.
I'll do that.
Good. I do.
Shall we take a little stroll through your newspapers?
Yeah. Yes, my husband and I work on our reunion committees. Over the years, I didn't try to keep in touch with him, but we were just on that committee every 10 years. So I would, and then I taught 2 of his children here.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the camera off the tripod for this.
Okay.
So I can move around and see the pictures.
You want to sit next to me?
My chair.
Oh, your chair.
As though I was still there.
Yes,
What were you
I
saying
think.
about Paul?
He's in this picture.
Say it again.
Paul Marcosian is in this picture that was beautifully posed by the photographer, and I hope Paul gets to see this picture. He will definitely recall the event. I think we should note that there are 825 Skyline senior graduates on May 29, 1969. And if you remember the auditorium, it was so jam-packed and so hot for not only that year, but many years, that
Go ahead.
I don't recognize, I'm trying to find Horizon students, but I don't see any in as grade.
Would you fold it up? Let me get it open again. Go ahead.
Ryan Poulton, very clever, somewhat sarcastic columns.
Start over stating his name.
Ryan Poulton wrote a column that he entitled himself, Life in the Birdcage. And I quite liked it because it was somewhat sarcastic and original and very clever. I'm looking at the athletes who were the outstanding all-around athletes. There is Ken Gibson and juniors Lance Robbins, sophomore Steve Marlowe, and senior Paul Olson.
Now, turn it, look at the front again, and then, okay, go ahead.
I'm seeing Nick Varanakis in his Letterman's jacket. The story is talking about the uniforms of various groups. I'm so surprised to see 26 new teachers at Skyline at the beginning of year, September 26th. And I see Joey Frank, who ultimately ended up at Hunter and is now retired, if you believe that. But I'm looking on the next page, and I'm seeing someone that some of you in the audience might recognize. Her name is Ivy Ruckman. And Ivy taught English and had the Satorian staff. Ultimately, she had the Satorian staff, and she has written a number of teenage novels that are very successful, and she's a delightful person. Steve Marlowe is one of the latest to be admitted to be honored in Skyline's Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
And Ted Wilson. I'm not sure how these go. I think like this, but I'm not sure.
What was Steve honored for?
For all of the work that he's done at Skyline.
You'll have to start that with a full sentence for me.
Steve was honored for being an educator, an athletic director, Skyline's PTSA Teacher of the Year in 1988. And then it also mentions that he was the most valuable player in 1970 and on the state football championship teams in 68 and 70. Almost made it in 69, but only to the semifinals.
There are other familiar faces up here. notice.
Well, you'd know.
Here's one that was early on.
Oh yes, Brandon Doman. So
No, I'm looking at Claran Jacobs.
Oh no, well. Look over at Brandon Doman. You know, they go across
Were you
this way.
surprised to find this up here when it came?
Yes, I was.
Why?
They go across. They don't go up and down. Well, it was the first year that they established this Skyline Hall of Fame, and I just was very surprised. The PTA is the one that makes these decisions. I know they get recommended. This room looks so small. I can't believe that we got all those desks in here and school newspapers all around, and the dark room's still there, and it looks so empty. This is the art room. It's called Gallery 127. Even the room number changed at some point. It was once 107 when a lot of us were in here. And it's echoey because the ceiling was painted over when it leaked and fell down and was put back up again. It was painted over, and all the rooms that went through that in this hall echo. I was told it's because of the type of paint they put on there. It's good to see it again.
isn't working.